ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Prehistoric and ancient China before 1600 BCE marked the formative period of Chinese civilization, characterized by the emergence of human settlements, the development of agriculture, the rise of tribal societies, and the creation of myths that laid the foundation for later cultural traditions. Early human settlements. This era begins with early humans like Peking man, a member of the species Homo erectus, who lived around 700, 0 to 200, 000 years ago near present-day Beijing. Peking man represents one of the earliest known inhabitants of the region using basic tools and fire to adapt to their environment. This was a time of survival and gradual adaptation where early humans hunted, gathered, and lived in caves. Later, during the Neolithic period, approximately 1000 to 2000 BCE, more advanced human settlements appeared, such as those of the Yangshao and Longshan cultures. The Yangshao culture, circa 500, circa 3000 BCE, is famous for its painted pottery and evidence of early agriculture. People lived in semi-permanent villages where they cultivated millet-raised livestock and crafted tools. The Longshan culture, circa 300-019 BCE, followed, known for its black wheel-made pottery and more complex social organization. Longshan sites also reveal the early signs of urban planning and fortifications, suggesting growing social hierarchies and communal defense strategies. Development of agriculture. The development of agriculture was a pivotal moment in prehistoric China, centered around the Yellow River Valley, often referred to as the cradle of Chinese civilization. Millet was the primary crop in the drier northern regions, while rice, which requires wetter conditions, was cultivated in the south. The advent of farming allowed communities to settle in one place, leading to stable food supplies, population growth, and the development of village life. These agricultural practices supported the shift from nomadic lifestyles to permanent settlements, enabling the rise of more complex societies, rise of early tribal societies. As agriculture supported larger populations, tribal societies began to form, bringing more organized structures and leadership. These early communities were likely based on kinship and shared labor, with leaders emerging to guide agricultural production, resolve disputes, and defend against outside threats. Tribal leaders may have also served religious roles, overseeing rituals and ceremonies that unified the community. Emergence of myths and ancient rulers. During this time, myths and oral traditions about legendary rulers and cultural heroes began to take shape. These stories provided a framework for understanding leadership, morality, and the origins of human innovation. The Yellow Emperor, considered a cultural hero and the ancestor of the Chinese people, the Yellow Emperor is credited with introducing essential technologies such as tools, writing, silk production, and medicine. He is seen as a unifier who brought order to the chaotic early tribes, symbolizing progress and the birth of civilization. Yao. Another revered figure, Yao, is remembered as a wise and virtuous ruler who set the standard for moral governance. According to legend, Yao governed with fairness, emphasized harmony, and selflessly abdicated his throne to the most qualified successor, establishing the ideal of merit-based leadership. Guard bases for building artificial beasts. At Simon's store, we argue that these stories are rooted in mythology, they reflect the values and ideals of early Chinese societies, emphasizing the importance of wisdom, innovation, and just rule. Significance, this period of prehistoric and ancient history laid the groundwork for Chinese civilization. The combination of human adaptation, agriculture, development, social organization, and cultural mythology provided the essential elements for the rise of more complex societies, including the early dynasties that would follow, such as the Shang and Zhou. It was a time of experimentation, innovation, and legacy. As you know, I eventually ended Qin. The Xia dynasty, which lasted from approximately 2070 to 1600 BCE, is considered China's first dynasty, though it is partly shrouded in legend and mythology. This period marks the transition from prehistoric tribal societies to the early statehood in Chinese history, combining historical developments with mythological narratives. Semi-legendary status. The Xia dynasty occupies a unique place in Chinese history, as much of what is known about it comes from ancient texts like the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian and oral traditions passed down through generations. Archaeological evidence supporting the Xia's existence is limited, but growing, with discoveries in places like Erlutu in Hainan province suggesting the presence of an early Bronze Age culture that may correspond to the Xia. These findings include bronze artifacts, tools, and urban structures, which align with descriptions of Xia society in ancient records. The dynasty is traditionally said to have been founded by Yu the Great, a legendary figure celebrated for his efforts to control devastating floods along the Yellow River. Yu's success in flood management is seen as a symbol of his ability to bring order to chaos, and he is credited with establishing hereditary rule by passing leadership to his son Qi, marking the beginning of dynastic governance. Early bronze usage and urbanization. The Xia dynasty is associated with the early development of bronze technology, which played a critical role in advancing society. Bronze tools, weapons, and ritual vessels became important symbols of power and authority. The use of bronze also marked the beginning of more complex craftsmanship and trade networks, as the raw materials for bronze were not always locally available. Urbanization during this period saw the rise of early walled settlements and the construction of palaces and ceremonial centers. These urban developments indicate the presence of a centralized authority and the emergence of a stratified society with distinct roles for rulers, artisans, farmers, and laborers. Mythological beginnings of Chinese statehood. The Jia dynasty is deeply intertwined with Chinese mythology, particularly the narrative of Yu the Great. According to legend, Yu earned his position as a ruler through his extraordinary dedication to controlling floods, working tirelessly for years to build canals and irrigation systems that diverted water to prevent disasters. This myth represents the values of hard work, leadership, and the ruler's role as a caretaker of the people. The Shai era is also associated with the early conception of Chinese statehood. It marks the shift from loose tribal alliances to a more centralized system of governance, where power was inherited and rulers were seen as semi-divine figures responsible for maintaining harmony between the heavens, earth, and their people. Historical significance. While the Jia dynasty's historicity remains debated, it holds significant symbolic importance as the beginning of dynastic rule in China. It established the template for governance, social organization, and cultural traditions that influenced subsequent dynasties like the Zhang and Zhou. The legends of the Jia, particularly those of Yu the Great, continue to inspire stories about leadership, morality, and the relationship between humanity and nature in Chinese culture. The Shang Dynasty, lasting from 1600 to 1046 BCE, represents a critical period in early Chinese history. It is the first Chinese dynasty with substantial archaeological evidence to support its existence. This era was marked by significant advancements in writing mythology, social organization, and religion, shaping the foundations of Chinese civilization. Development of Chinese writing, one of the most important achievements of the Shang Dynasty, was the development of Chinese writing. The earliest known examples are found on oracle bones, which were pieces of ox scapula or turtle plastron used for divination. Shang diviners would inscribe questions to the gods or ancestors on these bones, heat them until they cracked, and interpret the cracks to receive answers. These inscriptions, known as quote unquote oracle bones. Script are the earliest form of Chinese writing and the precursor to modern Chinese characters. The written records on oracle bones provide valuable insights into Shang society, politics, religion, and daily life. They reveal the concerns of Shang rulers, such as weather predictions, military campaigns, harvests, and rituals. The establishment of a written language also played a crucial role in administrative governance and cultural continuity. Growth of bronze metallurgy and complex social hierarchies. The Shang dynasty is often referred to as a Bronze Age civilization due to its mastery of bronze. Metallurgy. Bronze was used to create tools, weapons, and ritual vessels, many of which were intricately decorated with patterns and motifs. The production of these items required a high level of technical skill and an organized labor force, reflecting the sophistication of Shang society. Bronze artifacts were also symbols of power and status, primarily controlled by the ruling elite. The Shang rulers maintained their authority through a hierarchical social structure, with the king at the top, followed by nobles, warriors, artisans, farmers, and slaves. This stratification allowed the Shang to organize large-scale projects, such as bronze production, military campaigns, and the construction of walled cities. Urban centers, like Anyang, the last capital of the Shang dynasty, served as political, economic, and religious hubs. Excavations at Anyang have uncovered royal tombs, palaces, and workshops, providing a glimpse into the complexity of Shang urban life. Polytheistic religious beliefs and ancestor worship, religion, played a central role in Shang society, characterized by polytheistic beliefs and ancestor worship. The Shang people believed in a hierarchy of deities with the supreme god Shangdi at the top. Shangdi was thought to control of the forces of nature, victory in war, and the fate of the kingdom. Lesser deities were associated with natural phenomena like rivers, mountains, and the weather. Ancestor worship was another cornerstone of Shang religion. The Shang believed that deceased ancestors could influence the living, offering protection or causing harm. depending on whether they were properly venerated. Rulers performed elaborate rituals and sacrifices to honor their ancestors, often using bronze vessels as part of these ceremonies. Oracle bones were used not only for divination, but also as a means of communicating with the gods and ancestors, reflecting the deep intertwining of religion and governance. The king, as both a political and religious leader, acted as an intermediary between the human and divine realms. Historical significance: the Shang dynasty laid the foundations for many aspects of Chinese civilization, including its writing system, social organization, and religious practices. The advancements in bronze metallurgy and the stratified society of the Shang influenced subsequent dynasties, particularly the Zhou, which inherited and expanded upon many Shang traditions. The Shang era remains a vital chapter in understanding the early development of Chinese culture and statehood. Okay. The Zhou dynasty, lasting from 1046 to 256 BCE, was the longest lasting dynasty in Chinese history. It is divided into two major periods: the Western Zhou, 204677, 1 BCE, and the Eastern Zhou, 70256 BCE. This era was pivotal in shaping Chinese political philosophy, culture, and technology. Western Zhou 104677. Introduction of the Mandate of Heaven and Feudalism. The Zhou dynasty began when King Wu of Zhou defeated the Shang dynasty at the Battle of Muye around 1046 BCE. The Zhou rulers justified their overthrow of the Shang by introducing the concept of the Mandate of Heaven. This principle asserted that the right to rule was granted by heaven based on the ruler's virtue and ability to maintain order. If a ruler became corrupt or failed to govern effectively, the mandate of heaven could be withdrawn, justifying rebellion and the rise of a new dynasty. This idea became a cornerstone of Chinese political thought, influencing dynastic transitions for centuries. The Western Zhou established a feudal system to govern their vast territory. The king allocated land to nobles and relatives in exchange for military support and loyalty. These feudal lords governed their own regions, maintaining armies and collecting taxes. While this system initially allowed for effective governance over time, it led to the fragmentation of central authority as regional powers grew stronger and more independent. During this period, the Zhou capital was located at Haojing, near present-day Xi'an, and Zhou kings maintained a relatively stable and prosperous rule. Eastern Zhou, 770-256 BCE, Spring and Autumn period and Warring States period. The Eastern Zhou period began after the Zhou court was forced to move its capital east to Luoyang, following invasions by nomadic tribes in 751 BCE. This period is divided into two subperiods: the Spring and Autumn period, 770-476 BCE, and the Warring States period, 475-56 BCE. Spring and Autumn period. During this time, the Zhou king's power declined and local feudal lords became increasingly autonomous. Over 100 small states emerged competing for dominance. Despite the political fragmentation, this period saw significant cultural and intellectual development. Many of China's greatest philosophers and schools of thought, including Confucianism and Daoism, emerged during this era. The Warring States period was marked by intense warfare among 7 major states, Qi, Chu, Yin, An, Zhou, and Qin. This era saw the decline of feudalism and the rise of centralized states with professional armies and bureaucracies. It was also a time of great intellectual and technological advancement as rulers sought new strategies for governance and warfare. And then the Eastern Zhou period ended when the state of Qin conquered the other states, unifying China under the Qin Dynasty in 221 BCE. Rise of Confucianism, Daoism, and legalism. The Zhou dynasty was a golden age for Chinese philosophy, often referred to as the 100 schools of thought. Three major schools of thought emerged during this period, profoundly shaping Chinese culture and governance. Confucianism, founded by Confucius during the spring and autumn period. Confucianism emphasized morality, social harmony, and proper relationships between individuals. Its core principles include respect for elders, filial piety, and the importance of education and virtuous leadership. Daoism. Attributed to Lao Tzu, Daoism focused on living in harmony with the Tao, the way, a fundamental force underlying the universe. Daoism encouraged simplicity, spontaneity, and alignment with nature, contrasting with Confucianism's emphasis on social order. Legalism. Legalism emerged during the Warring States period and emphasized strict laws, centralized authority, and harsh punishments as the keys to maintaining order. Legalist ideas were later adopted by the Qin dynasty to unify China. Iron tools and improved agricultural techniques. The Zhou dynasty saw significant technological advancements, particularly in agriculture. The introduction of iron tools revolutionized farming, making it more efficient and productive. Iron plows and tools allowed farmers to cultivate larger areas of land, leading to increased food production and population growth. Irrigation systems and crop rotation techniques were also developed, further boosting agricultural output. These innovations supported the growth of cities and facilitated trade, laying the groundwork for economic expansion. And historical significance. The Zhou dynasty established many of the cultural, political, and philosophical foundations of Chinese civilization. The concept of the mandate of heaven and the transition from feudalism to centralized states influenced the structure of Chinese governance for centuries. The intellectual contributions of Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism continued to shape Chinese society and philosophy, while technological advancements in agriculture and warfare set the stage for future developments. Despite its eventual decline, the Zhou dynasty left an enduring legacy that defined the trajectory of Chinese history. The Qin dynasty, which lasted from 221 to 206 BCE, was a transformative period in Chinese history, marking the transition from the Warring States period to a unified empire. Despite its brevity, the dynasty had a profound and lasting impact on China's political, cultural, and architectural development. Unification of China under Qin Shi Huang, the ruler of the state of Qin, who declared himself the first emperor after conquering the other 6 warring states, Qi, Chu, Yin, Han Shao, and Wei Unificao. This unification ended centuries of warfare and established the first centralized imperial government in Chinese history. Qin Shi Huang sought to consolidate his power and ensure stability across the vast empire. To achieve this, he abolished the feudal system and replaced it with, with a centralized bureaucratic administration. The empire was divided into administrative units, provinces, and counties, governed by officials appointed by the emperor rather than hereditary feudal lords. Centralization of power and standardization and centralized authority and unify the empire. These reforms included standardization. A uniform currency weights and measures were introduced to facilitate trade and economic integration across the empire. The Chinese writing system was standardized, ensuring consistent communication and record keeping across regions with diverse dialects and scripts. Legal and political reforms. A uniform legal code was enforced across the empire, emphasizing strict laws and severe punishments in line with legalist principles, which prioritized state control and discipline. The emperor consolidated power by suppressing dissent, burning books that contradicted legalist ideology, and executing scholars who opposed his rule. Infrastructure development. Extensive road networks and canals were built to improve transportation, communication, and military mobilization throughout the empire. Construction of the Great Wall, one of Qin Shi Huang's most ambitious projects, was the construction of the Great Wall of China to protect the northern frontier from nomadic invasions. While earlier walls built by warring states existed, Qin Shi Huang connected and expanded them into a continuous defensive barrier. The project required massive labor with thousands of workers, many of them conscripted, engaged in the arduous construction. Though the wall was not as extensive as later versions built in subsequent dynasties, it symbolized the emperor's determination to secure and defend the empire. Terracotta army as a symbol of Qin authority. Qin Shi Huang's obsession with immortality is most famously represented by the Terracotta army, an extraordinary archaeological discovery near his mausoleum in Xi'an. The army consists of thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots, each uniquely crafted. The Terracotta army was intended to protect the emperor in the afterlife and demonstrate his power and authority even in death. This monumental project reflects the vast resources and labor that the Qin dynasty could command. Harsh rule and collapsed Qin Shi Huang's rule was characterized by harshness and oppression, his centralization efforts, heavy taxation, forced labor for massive construction projects, and severe punishments created widespread resentment among the population. After his death in 210 BCE, his successor, Qin Ershi, proved incapable of maintaining control. Rebellions erupted across the empire, fueled by discontent with the dynasty's harsh policies. In 206 BCE, the Qin dynasty collapsed following a widespread uprising led by Liu Bang, a former peasant who founded the Han Dynasty. Despite its short duration, the Qin dynasty left a lasting legacy. Historical significance. The Qin dynasty's contributions to Chinese history were monumental. It established the framework for imperial governance, which influenced subsequent dynasties. The standardization of writing currency and infrastructure integration helped unify the diverse regions of China. The Great Wall and Terracotta Army stand as enduring symbols of Qin Huang's ambition and authority. Although its harsh policies led to its downfall, the Qin dynasty's achievements laid the foundation for a unified and enduring Chinese empire. Um, the Han Dynasty, lasting from 206 BCE to 220 CE, um, is considered one of the most influential periods in Chinese history. It was a time of political stability, cultural flourishing, and significant technological and economic advancements. The dynasty is often regarded as a golden age that shaped Chinese identity and governance for centuries. The establishment of a centralized bureaucracy and Confucianism as state ideology. The Han Dynasty was founded by Wu Bang, later a commoner who rose to power after the fall of the Qin dynasty. To govern the vast empire effectively, the Han retained the centralized administrative system of the Qin, but tempered its harshness with more humane policies. Centralized bureaucracy. The empire was divided into provinces and counties overseen by Grin bureaucracy. The Han emperors established the civil service system, which selected officials through examinations and recommendations. This system emphasized competence and loyalty, becoming a model for future dynasties. Confucianism as state ideology under Emperor Wu 14187 BCE. Confucianism was adopted as the official state philosophy. This marked a shift from legalist principles, emphasizing moral governance, filial piety, and the importance of education. Confucian ideals were integrated into the civil service with officials trained in Confucian classics. This strengthened the connection between governance and moral philosophy. The combination of centralized administration and Confucian principles created a stable and harmonious society, setting a precedent for governance in imperial China.